When it comes to the New River Valley real estate market, I'm sure you've heard terms like it's a buyer's real estate market, it's a balanced real estate market, or most recently, it's a seller's real estate market. But what exactly does that mean? So when we're looking at whether or not it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, or whether it's a balanced market, we're looking at a metric called the absorption rate. And the absorption rate just simply means how long would it take to absorb the existing inventory if nothing else came on the market? How long would it take to absorb the homes that are currently for sale? As a general rule, we have long thought that a balanced market is 6 months worth of inventory. So if it would take 6 months to absorb all of the homes that are currently on the market, that's a balanced market. If it would take more than 6 months to absorb the homes that are on the market in that price range, in that zip code, even in just the market as a whole, if it would take more than 6 months, that's a buyer's market. Conversely, if it takes less than 6 months, that's a seller's market. The question then becomes, what's better? You would think it's a balanced market, but as a buyer might prefer a buyer's market, or a seller would prefer a seller's market. It really just depends. None of them are inherently bad, they just are. The market is what the market is. But if you've been a buyer in the New River Valley for the last several years, you have obviously felt the strain. We have long been in a seller's market here in the New River Valley. In fact, we haven't seen a balanced market, so 6 months worth of inventory. In the New River Valley, we haven't seen a balanced market since February 2021. By the way, would you just look at that beautiful green space here in the village at Toms Creek? Now, because it's a particular market, because it's a seller's market, you might think that the seller has all of the leverage. They have the cards, and sometimes they may have more leverage than a buyer, but not always. Same goes for a buyer's market. Just because it's a buyer's market doesn't mean the buyer has the edge. Now, it does mean that, say in a seller's market, the seller may be able to be a little bit more firm when they receive an offer. They may be able to hold to their price a little bit better, or maybe even be a little bit more aggressive with their price when they initially list. And conversely, a buyer may, if it's a buyer's market, a buyer may be able to ask for concessions that they wouldn't have been able to in the past. So it's not that one is better than the other, but certainly if you've been a buyer in the New River Valley recently in the last several years, you have felt that squeeze. In Blacksburg, we haven't seen a balanced market in Blacksburg in the 24060 zip code since August of 2016. So it's been quite some time. Christiansburg, July of 2017. And even Radford has been considered a seller's market, again, less than 6 months worth of inventory since May of 2020. So if you've been a buyer in the New River Valley, you have certainly felt the effects of this. Now, things might be changing. When we look at absorption rate from the perspective of 6 months as a balanced market, we're actually seeing that number change a little bit. And currently the New River Valley is sitting at 5 months worth of inventory. So still considered a seller's market, but definitely changing from what it's been over the last several years. Now, if you're a buyer, that doesn't mean there aren't opportunities to be had, because there are. But that also means that if you're a seller, you may need to be a little bit more realistic in how you price your home. And while we're at it, can we talk about this beautiful craftsman in the village at Toms Creek? It's 1803 Honeysuckle Drive in Blacksburg. Let me know if you want to come see it. It's currently listed for $625,000.